All right, everybody. I think we have gone live. Lori Swanson here, your uh, CEO of Inspire Tech, a career coaching firm for women in and around technology, and also the founder of Career Alchemy Academy, which is a membership community for women who are supporting each other in reaching their career and life dreams through coaching and community support and networking opportunities and connections. It's just a wonderful place to be. And so feel free to follow the link that's going to be over my shoulder as soon as I change my background to the Career Alchemy QR code. And so feel free to come and connect with me, sign up for Career Alchemy Academy or DM me. Let's talk and let's think about where you're at today. We're almost mid-year, right? 2026. Where you want to go, and then what's in between can be a little foggy, and that's where I come in. So I'm always here and ready to help you build a career that aligns with who you are joyously becoming. And I'll talk even more about that next week. I've been working on that blog. But for this week, this is one of my favorite blogs in a while. Like, I will admit, last week's blog, which of course is what I read here, not read, but talk about during these live, broadcasts, the 100% responsibility is such a hard concept that I've been working with for years, and I still have a hard time explaining it. So you'll probably see more content coming down the pipe where I'm continuing to talk about taking 100% responsibility, because I think that it's that important. I really, really do. It's such a um, game changer for sure, but there's freedom in it. And it can, it when you think about it, 100% responsibility, it can feel like more, I've got to add more on my plate to be 100% responsibility, but it's not that. So I'm going to keep talking about that, but that's not what I'm talking about this week. This week, one of my favorite blogs, because it just rolled out of me. It was one of the, compared to last week's, which was a harder slog. And I was confused by it in some places. So I know I was confusing other people. So I apologize for that. Not every thing I write is clear sometimes. Sometimes we're just unclear, but the concept, I'm telling you, the concept is worth continuing to go after. So I will do that. But this week, what I wanted to talk about is how to make your hidden career value visible. So I had one of the career alchemists come for coaching around, she had recently started at her, new executive role in a mid-sized consultancy. And she had an issue that she was bringing to coaching inside of Career Alchemy Academy, which was you know, she was bumping up against something, and she wanted to understand some strategies, some ways in which she could showcase her hidden value, which we were calling, what I'm calling hidden value, that she was bringing to the organization. So, if you're familiar with consulting firms, it's all about the billable hours, right? And it's important to recognize that when we think about value outside of billable hours, it's often subtle but significant and hidden, that we're bringing to our roles, even often or especially at a more executive leadership level, because often we're not directly billable. And so we have to find ways to showcase the value that we're bringing, so it's understood explicitly. And so for her, working at this consulting firm that places high value on billable hours, she was hired I mean, knowingly, not directly in a billable role. She was brought on to help, bring her, leadership skills to building even more cohesive teams. And also, she has an AI framework that she developed that can help organizations, future clients, create a framework and strategy for themselves around AI. Hopefully, one that's not sucking every dime through token use. And if you know, you know, um, something more uh, that's actually bringing, uh, you know, uh, bottom line savings. They're talking about all this time savings, but this financial, I'm going down a little tangent here, but if you know what I'm talking about with this token use and the charge, it's just, it's crazy. And all these gains we think we're making with reducing headcount are going to be lost in financially through this token process, but also we know that there's also a lot of other losses that come when you try to replace humans with tech. But again, Lori, tangenting. Back to what we're talking about today as far as showcasing hidden value, but it does relate, as you can see. So she's not directly billable. She was brought on to help, uh, create even more cohesive teams that are going out and delivering at the clients, but also bringing in this AI framework strategy that they can sell to clients and help clients as they build out their own strategy. So she's really hired as to bring transformation to the culture and to the company. And the hiring team knew this. Like I said, this was why she was hired. It was recognized that she wasn't directly billable. Yet now she's running up against that old, how many hours are you billing this week, this month, measuring stick, and feeling like she needs to justify her 40-hour work week plus, and her overall value that she's bringing to the organization. So that's why she wanted some coaching and some thoughts on this, so she could show how she could, again, more directly, more obviously, share her hidden and long-term impact that she was going to be bringing to the organization around future offerings and, of course, bottom line returns. So, and I think it's something everyone should be thinking about. We all have hidden value that that we're bringing, that we aren't measuring as well as we could. We aren't communicating for sure as loudly as we could. That adds and you know adds to our value within the firm. So we often have lots of activities that bring great value to the companies, but aren't recognized, and they're not obvious. And that's what I want to talk about today, because hidden value. So I want you to hear this, sort of my definition of hidden value. Hidden value is the work that keeps things stable, that keeps things scalable, that brings innovation, that keeps things, helps to keep sort of a future focus to what the organizations are bringing to their clients and to their own firm. But often these things that keep things stable, that keep things scalable, innovative, and future focused are hidden because they prevent chaos rather than are in reaction to chaos, which is often how organizations are living. And so it's quieter, it's more subtle. Like I said, it's hidden, it's invisible, and so we're not really seeing the value of that. And what makes the recognition of the value of that which is hidden especially powerful is the contrast between what is visible urgency versus what's the invisible impact that's actually happening, and what is firefighting activities versus foundational work that's happening. What's the measurable impact that we can measure right now, in billable hours, in, a new client, versus the long-term influence activities might be having for the overall benefit of the organization, the people working at the organization, the clients, all of that. So it's that contrast, and also this idea of the contrast between being loud and creating leverage. So when I think about hidden value, that's what I'm thinking about. And I wanted to tell a little side story that completely relates to this. So let me get a drink. Still recovering from my cold I had last week. I'm on the tail end of it, but still there. So, a coaching client was in conversation. We were in conversation, and she was reflecting on her first job in tech. And she was a very talented, super smart software engineer who delivered clean, bug-free code. Now, her counterpart that was hired at the same time, same amount of job experience, her counterpart delivered bug-infested code that required her counterpart to often be pulling in the senior technologist to help help see the error of his ways, see the errors and where the errors were coming from, and also other areas within the organization, so that he could make sure that he was delivering the expected outcomes, right? So in the end, the person who had the bug-infested code was seen as a harder worker who was probably working on more sophisticated problems than my client, just because they were louder, right? And so perception wasn't true, but perception is everything. And that's why we want to make sure that they are perceiving the important value that you're bringing that might be considered that isn't a direct path, but that it's, again, this invisible hidden value. So I want to talk about 5 different types of hidden value and then give you some strategies to make them more visible. So number 1, preventing problems before they happen. So that is a hidden value, right? So like the clean code example, you're the person who catches risks early, creates smoother systems, notices gaps before they launch, asks thoughtful questions, improves clarity through these questions, right? Creates documentation. Don't you know what I'm talking about? If you know what I'm talking about with that, creates documentation, builds sustainable processes. And the irony of it, of course, is that when everything is running smoothly, people assume it's just easy. But the visible strategy around this is to start documenting where you're avoiding risks and creating efficiency gains. So when we're talking about preventing problems from happening, the visible strategy is documenting the, like I said, the efficiencies that are being created, the risks that have been avoided. So you can say something like, the new workflow that we just implemented, that I just created, or my team just created, helped reduce approval delays by 3 days. Or the updated intake process eliminated duplicate resources or requests, thereby saving time, saving money. Right? I always like to add a "so what" onto the end of a statement. I talk about this when I'm talking about resumes. People talk, they suggest having percentages and measurable information on the resumes. And I'm always like, whatever your sentence is, ask "so what?" Like, why does this matter, right? And this is true here as well, is, when you think about the expressing, the cleaner architecture reduced downstream revisions, then think even further at the "so what" past that. And that means XYZ. Right? So translating, so for the first one that we're talking about, the first, I guess, hidden value is that you're preventing problems before they happen. So translating the invisible stability into business language and outcome is the strategy that you want to do. The number 2 is the emotional and relational labor. So women are often um, uh, the unofficial like culture stabilizers. They are the conflict diffusers. They're the unsung mentor, right? The onboarding support. This work absolutely impacts retention, morale, productivity, yet it rarely, if ever, I don't think I've ever heard it appearing on KPIs. So if you can get it on the KPI, wouldn't that be great? But a visibility strategy around this emotional relationship labor, it's really your EQ, right? Is tying that relational work to organizational outcomes. For example, improved collaboration, faster onboarding, stronger client trust, faster. Like we build trust faster within teams, cross-functionally, and with our customers and clients. Higher retention, of course, reduced escalation of problems, up the chain, smoother cross-functional execution in general. So you can say, I've noticed I've become a key bridge. Don't you love that word, that term? I've become a key bridge between departments, which is help accelerate project alignment. And then adding the so what, your measurable, the metrics around that, add that there in that sentence. And I'll talk a little bit more about how to communicate that. It's pretty obvious, but I'll say it anyways. But the overall, strategy to showcasing emotional and relational hidden value of your work is to frame your EQ, your emotional intelligence, as your leadership super capability through, really explicitly talking about the improved collaboration and the faster onboarding and things like that. Number 3, strategic thinking that has yet to be monetized. So when we talk about, for instance, my client's AI framework that she was part of the reason she was hired, right? But when we talk about that, it's a perfect example because it isn't, it isn't an offering that they're communicating yet. I mean, they're still at the beginning stages. And so innovation work often looks unproductive and before the payoff arrives, right? So because foundations are still being built, the systems are evolving, adoption takes time. I know like when I sold software and we'd get this, let's say we get a new product in our product line and none of the sales reps were like jumping on board selling the products right away. They had products that they knew how to sell. They, how to speak to the customers about, how to show the customer the value of. And so now you bring in this new product and you're like, yeah, get on board, the management. And we're like, that's not the fastest path to cash for me, is it? So things like that, even though eventually that product, and I'm thinking of one particular one, was actually my bread and butter, but it took me a while, to get there. And so innovation, because I still had learning to do, and the adoption of that product took time for me, and in the communication to my clients, and sort of weaving it into my the story of how it fits with our other products. And also beyond that, how it will make a difference for their teams. And so transformation is nonlinear. And organizations often overvalue immediate revenue. And I think even I was doing that as a sales rep. This is my immediate revenue versus, and they undervaluing future positioning, future, for me, future bigger bucks, right? Because that product did end up being my bread and butter. But initially I'm like, nope, don't ask me to change my process. This is working for me. And so I think that happens often for, whatever role you're in inside of an organization where, this new strategic offering or strategic mindset or product or whatever is just it's not fully adopted yet, and so therefore the value isn't being seen. But the visibility strategy that you can bring to something like this is important because because we want to make it visible faster. So creating milestones for this transformation work instead of final prove out. Yeah, I think about I've helped to organize and run pitch fests for new young companies looking for investments for their tech solutions, a variety of tech solutions. And, here they are trying to get people to invest in a future that isn't, proved out fully yet. But they have lots of data that they can show why they believe that it will happen. So that's what I'm talking about here. So creating milestones for this transformational work, for these new product offerings, this new strategies that you're trying to implement, this new change that you're trying to bring into the organization, start sooner than just having everyone leap to, yes, this will work and all of that. So how do you do that? Show pilot, do pilots and show progress through your pilots. Document your adoption rates as they're happening, or even looking at competitive analysis and information and gathering that information to show proof. Tracking efficiencies that are going to be occurring, highlighting future revenue opportunities, presenting frameworks visually. Like, I think this is really important because picture's worth 1,000 words, easy as that. And so when people can see versus bullet, sentence, but you're showing them these people using the framework and, can really, wouldn't it be fun to just kind of create a little movie of people, 1 year from now and how the organization has not only your organization, but your customers' organizations has transformed because of this currently undervalued, slightly invisible, but game-changing strategy, tool, framework, whatever it is you're bringing. So you want to create milestones and show visually, what you're working on before it's fully launched, really, and communicate the strategic readiness for it. Like, you can show how that the strategy is in place even before you begin to do the actual tasks, right? So people understand progress better when they see the movement. So you want to show the movement. Number 4, quiet competence. So some people do excellent work without creating a lot of noise around it. Unfortunately, and this, goes right to my client, the elegant coder, right? Unfortunately, workplaces often reward urgency or overextension, like lots of hours or constant escalation of things. Like they're putting all their, what is this, squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? But it's like, really, if we let that squeaky wheel squeak a little bit longer and focus over here, that squeaky wheel might become, not necessary. Or when we finally get to it, there's so much other things in place that the squeak reduces, right? So that we're often, I know you've seen it inside the organizations, but we often reward those sorts of behaviors. Meanwhile, the calm high performer, like my client, disappears into the background. So if quiet competence is the hidden value you're trying to communicate visibly, a visibility strategy around that is to narrate your work more consistently. So sharing your project updates, and that might be, summarizing the wins in meetings and the wins of your team, sending recap emails, inside of your skip level and one-on-one conversations, connecting your work to the larger company outcomes. So if you could show how this is, because we know the company, will have their annual Like, these are the big things we're working on. And we know all of that stuff. So show how it ties directly to what they're already seeing as a priority. And then speak about outcomes, not just the tasks. And then number 5, capacity creation. So I talk a lot about capacity inside of Career Alchemy and expanding our capacity to be with all the things, to be with joyful moments and to be with hard moments. There's this emotional capacity that's really important to continue to create for yourself, right? But it's one of the most, capacity itself is one of the most overlooked forms of value in creating ease for other people. So it's like emotional capacity is about you, but when you are creating capacity for others through creating ease for others, that is of huge value, and it needs to be acknowledged and given credit. And so what I'm talking about is like you could be the person that's simplifying workflows or creating those really bang up templates. Like for me, I mean, do not like spreadsheets and templates and um uh I just and I like using them and I see that value, but the creating of them, and when I see a good one, I'm like blown away. It's like seeing a Monet in in Paris when I went to lingerie for the first time and saw the water lilies, and I was like, whoa, and I feel the same way about, is that weird? About really well-designed PowerPoints and templates and spreadsheets and things like that. And so, and if you're that person, you know, I get it, but not everyone gets it. Like there's a difference there. It makes a difference. And so if you're creating these bang up templates or you're improving communications and how we communicate and the process of communicating information across the organization, if you're helping to reduce confusion, these are all, if you're organizing information or helping teams, organize information and move faster, all of that means their capacity is increasing, right? Through these things that you're doing. And so the person who creates clarity often saves dozens and dozens of hours, and nobody is tracking it. Nobody is tracking it. So the visibility strategy here for creating bringing visible the capacity creation that you, through the ease that you are doing within your work, is to quantify the time, quantify friction. So when you think about, friction being reduced, the resource savings, whenever possible, that's the strategy there. So I've helped reduce onboarding time by 25%. I've created reusable templates that are now being accessed across 4 different teams. I've centralized resources that reduce duplicate requests. And then adding your so what, and this means why there's a so what behind this, and, giving like exact examples, just stretching that out a little bit. So help your organization recognize that ease is valuable. Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. So hidden value. So we talk just as to remind you of the 5 things, because that was it. But number 1, your hidden value is at preventing problems before they happen. And your strategy is to document where you're avoiding risks and gaining efficiencies. If one of your hidden values is emotional and relationship labor, that EQ, that high EQ, make sure that you frame your EQ as a leadership superpower. And we talked about ways to do that. The other one was strategic thinking that hasn't yet been monetized. So things that are still, in the incubator. The strategy is to help them understand the progress by seeing movement ahead of the final outcome, like showing them that. And then 4 was if your hidden value is your quiet competence, you aren't the one that's always pulling in people to help you solve problems and escalating things up. If that's not how you operate, then make sure that you're narrating your work, you're communicating what you're achieving as often as you can, because it isn't going to be the noisy stuff, but you're going to just be like, oh, and this, sharing your project updates and things like that. So you're creating visibility around your contribution by communicating in the meetings, communicating in, putting it on your performance reviews, communicating it to your skip level, to one-on-one, through emails, things like that. You're just doing it for yourself and for your team so that doesn't get lost in all the noise, right? And then number 5 was that capacity creation. So how you are the integral to creating ease that gives the team and the organization more capacity to do what they do best, whatever that is. So hidden value is often invisible because it prevents, and I've talked about all of this, but because it prevents problems, because it creates stability, because it builds trust, and it builds trust faster. I might have mentioned that, but there's something about, how hard it is to measure that you trust, that someone trusts you, and that the relationship has got trust built. But this will happen faster. That's a hidden value. So it prepares the organization and the team for the future more easily, and they're harder to measure or participate in, I guess I would say, that hidden value stuff. It's harder to measure than visible urgency or, chaos. So like the engineer with the buggy code looks busy, looks collaborative, looks needed, while my client who had the beautiful code looked less valuable because her excellence didn't require attention. You want to make sure that you share your hidden value, call out your hidden value whenever and wherever you can, both of what you're doing, but also what your team is doing. As the leader of a team, it's important to because isn't this amazing? As you start to call out the hidden value on your team, sometimes it's easier to do it for others, but as you start to do it, and you do it again, and you do it again, they start to recognize themselves. Your team members start to really see more value in themselves, but the organization, you'll see things shifting where other people start talking about hidden value as well, in the same way you are. So you want to share it, share your own, and share your team's hidden value during meetings, performance reviews, skip level conversations, all of those things, because then your hidden value is now a beacon of light that you're following, that the team is following, that the organization is following, and you'll no longer need to justify your work to anybody, because it does shine like that beacon, and others can get behind it. Others can elevate it. That's how valuable making visible your hidden value is, getting things elevated. So if you're feeling invisible yourself and you want a coach that wants to help you share your hidden value and get and find work that acknowledges it and sees the value in it and elevates you because of it, then let's go. What are you waiting for? It's time now for us to coach together and join Career Alchemy Academy, be part of a community or private coaching. Both things are available. And what else can I say? I think that's it for today. I'm looking forward. I've already halfway written what I'm going to be talking about next week, and that is going to be a little bit different, a lot of fun. It's not 100% responsibility. I'm not there yet. I'm still percolating on that one because that came out so confused. It has a lot of stuff in there, but there is hidden value in taking 100% responsibility, and I have to figure out how to make it visible and easy for you all to get your arms around as I continue to get my arms around it, because it's going to make a difference, I'm telling you. But so is what we talked about today. So just decide to, like I would say, just track for a week, like where's my hidden value happening? Where am I, creating more ease for people, and where am I working innovatively or strategically, but the full outcomes aren't here yet, but how do I showcase that? So start to track some of that and then look for ways to communicate it so that you become visible. So there we go. And peace to everybody. Looking forward to seeing you same place, same time next week. I am here Wednesdays, 1 o'clock Central Time, live on all the channels or a few channels. And you know where to find me. Talk to you soon.